Travel and things in association with sun destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences present in conversation with. I'm your host, David Batsoffen, and my guest today is somebody you probably don't know, but you know this entrance if you drive up and down Jan Smuts at all, because we drive past it on an almost daily basis. And finally, I have managed to persuade the executive manager of the Johannesburg Zoo, Louise Gordon, to join me on In Conversation with. Louise, good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Firstly, happy 122nd birthday. But I have to say
Absolutely.
you don't look your age at all.
Thank you so much. And I must say,
The
I was not around when they started the zoo, so just so to we are clear on that.
fair enough. Tell us a bit of a background, a bit of a history about Joburg Zoo. I mean, 122 years. Does that make it one of the oldest zoos in the world?
No, not really. There
Oh,
are zoos in Australia that are like 250 years old, so
okay.
I think we're probably, kind of a
Mm,
medium-aged zoo, but we are the third oldest zoo in South Africa. And
mm,
so you have the National Zoo in Pretoria that is older than us, about 2 years older. And then also you have the Queen's Park Zoo in East London. And I think that was actually maybe the first zoo in South Africa,
really?
obviously close to the harbour and all those kind of
Yeah.
things. So yeah, but yeah, 122, very proud to be part of Johannesburg, part of the skyline. I
Mm.
think also we're part of history. You know, so many people grow up in Johannesburg and they all are they all share very happy memories about the zoo. Zoos are not for everybody, but
No,
our
true
zoo, I
enough.
think,
But
is a really good zoo. Mm.
but that's not I must put a disclaimer at the head of our chat. And the disclaimer is this is not a conversation about whether zoos should or should not exist. It's merely a chat about what my experience was at the zoo and how happy I was to be there, good, bad, or indifferent. But I'd like to ask you a question because my mom and I had this discussion just recently. I remember going on elephant rides at the Joburg
Oh,
Zoo.
yeah.
But when I looked up what year it happened, they said between 1913 and 1915. I was only born in 53, so I couldn't have ridden them then. So, do you remember what years those elephant rides were active, Louise?
I think it was in the 1950s, really, because
Yeah,
our enclosure was kind of built, the new African one was built in the 60s.
yeah.
And at that stage, when they did elephant rides around the bandstand, they had Asian elephants, and they
Mm,
actually were taken at night to the old elephant house down at Jan Smuts, and they
yeah.
were, they would be put inside the night room, and they would have chains around their legs to hold them there. And today, when you go inside the old elephant house, you'll see the timber floor, and you'll still see
Mm.
the indentation of where the elephants were standing at night. And then
Okay.
during the daytime, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Then during the daytime, they would take them, it's kind of like in a forest area. And the
Mm.
forest area would be where the old polar bear enclosure is now.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because we couldn't quite figure out how old I was when that happened. But if you say
Oh,
50s, it
yeah.
would have been the late 50s. So then like we can figure out why we were in Joburg, because we were from Port Elizabeth. And neither of us can figure out what we were doing here. But anyway, be that as it may, that now puts that to rest. Talking about the old enclosures, this was the old carnivore enclosure. It is no longer
Yes.
that. It's a historical
Well, the old
monument.
one, oh, yes. There we go. Yeah, the old enclosure is actually also quite an old one, and it's got very interesting stories about a lioness that came to live in the zoo, but she was actually hand raised, and she was raised with a dog, and
Mm,
then she was quite lonely, and then they brought the dog as well. And I'm not actually entirely sure what happened in the end there, if they just lived out their lives in that enclosure, but it's actually quite a grotty enclosure for any zoo. I think probably quite a traditional looking enclosure
mm.
for a zoo. But these days, we simply do not have that. We just have it as an old memory to remind we must keep on improving and make
Yeah.
sure that our animals are fine and that the welfare of the animals are actually the most important thing
Mm.
for us. And I must also say that zoos have actually really changed quite a lot over the years. So these days, zoos are really scientific bodies. They're busy with a lot of information. There's a lot of exchange of knowledge throughout the world.
Mm.
So, a lot of work that people put in. And also, I think, in the old days, when you kind of looked at that kind of enclosure, the staff that worked at the zoo were not that well educated, but these days I have staff members that are walking around with a doctorate, a master's
Okay.
degree, so they're all
Yeah.
highly qualified to be part of the zoo world and to make sure that we actually really produce a good working and that we
Mm.
participate in research and of course in education. We do actually quite a lot of education. And funny enough, a couple of years ago, they actually used this enclosure to do like a bit of a team building thing. So they would lock you inside, and there's four compartments inside, and they would kind of like move around and actually they would move around and then they would kind of like inside the four enclosures, they would have kind of you had to like use bread and put the so you've got somebody else's key actually. That's what I'm trying
Ah,
to say. You've got somebody
okay.
else's key, and so then you must kind of work together to get the key from the person next to you, and then they give
Ah.
you kind of something like a piece of bread or something like that, and you stick it on the key into that, and then you try and shuffle it around. So, but a couple of people actually said to me after this experience at the lion enclosure, they were so kind of traumatized, So,
Mm.
and I think that was the end of that kind of team building. I would imagine that it would be a little bit narrow and tight, and if you had any kind of fear of narrow spaces, that would be it.
Also, I seem to remember some while ago, somebody sat in that enclosure to raise money for something, but who it was and for what it was, I don't know. So we'll move on. Now, the flamingo, I don't trust flamingos. I really and truly don't. I don't trust birds, period, because they have no eyelids and they just glare at you like this one. But that flamingo enclosure has been there, I think, as long as the zoo has. It's the first thing you walk in if you use the Smuts entrance.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I must say, our flamingos are actually very friendly.
Are
We often
they?
go to other parks and yeah, we often go to other parks and the flamingos at their parks, like at Monte Casino, Bird Gardens, their
Mhm.
flamingos don't want to even speak to you. They don't even want to look at you. Our
I,
flamingos are really friendly. They like actually looking at people. They like interacting.
yeah.
They also form quite little cliques. So in the
Mhm.
mornings when we rock up at work, because my office is right there at the flamingos,
Yeah.
so when we rock up in the morning, and then we first have a chat to the flamingos, and then you can see who's in a good mood and who's not in a good mood and who's doing what. And so it's actually quite a really interesting space to live in.
Yeah,
And I can also tell you they're really loud birds.
they
So
are
sometimes
indeed.
when we sit in the admin boardroom, you can't hear people talk because of the flamingos chatting in the background. So yeah, it's an interesting space.
Louder than hardy dars. Maybe we should release them into Joburg. They'd be prettier than the hardy dars.
They are.
Talking about long-running exhibits, the meerkat exhibit also has been around for the longest time.
Oh yeah, sure. That is actually, sometimes one struggles with heritage areas
Mm.
inside your facility. And so that is probably one of the older enclosures that we still use with the meerkats and so on. So I think there's a couple of them that we have left in the zoo that obviously they have to remain as they are and we can't change them. But the
Yeah.
meerkats, they had to build a whole structure on top of that old enclosure. We
Mm.
actually got a new meerkat in, and this meerkat decided, no, no, outside the enclosure is far better than inside. And so it started jumping out of the enclosure, and then it taught all the others to also jump outside of the enclosure. So now they had to put up a whole big fence around it to make sure that the meerkats do not go walk about in the zoo. I mean, we have a lot of other wild little animals in the zoo, like the squirrels and so on.
Yeah.
And so I think when you were here, you probably would have seen quite a number of squirrels running around the
All
zoo.
over. They're in
All over, yeah,
everything except
all
the
over.
predator pens. They're not stupid. They go where there's like antelope and things that aren't going to eat them.
The only issue with them is that they dig those holes and
Yeah.
your fences are, in danger. But don't worry, we are looking well after us, so there will be no fences falling or anything like that. I can promise you.
Fair enough. Now, I remember Max well. I remember when he was shot. If you
Yes,
go to Mill Park Casualty, there are pictures on the walls there because they treated
correct.
Max there. I was there when Makoko was brought in. I believe he's no longer with us.
Sure.
Um, but this particular statue is it's rubbed clean on its hands and on its face. And I noticed because
Yes,
people sit on him to have photographs
they do.
taken.
They do. Very, very popular. So one of our previous directors, Jenny Gray, actually had it commissioned, and so people sponsored it. But I mean, Max was really a great story. He made Newsmaker of the Year in that particular year.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so he was, I mean, obviously he was shot by the person that jumped inside the enclosure. And then because his muscles are so thick, we couldn't treat him in our veterinary hospital. So we had to go to Mill Park so that they could see on the x-rays where the bullet
Where the
is. And
bullet
he
was.
actually
Yeah.
died with a bullet inside his body because to take the bullet out would really cause a lot of damage to those big muscles.
Mm.
And so it wasn't life-threatening or anything like that for him. But I remember in those days, I don't know if you ever saw it, that the police actually made him a big bulletproof jacket. I think it was probably the biggest bulletproof jacket in the
Yeah.
entire world. So yeah, so he got that. I have no idea where it is now, but
Ah.
yeah, so Max is still there. We've got his beautiful statue, as you say, very popular with children.
Mm.
And as I say, I think it's a real icon in the zoo
Yeah.
and a good
It,
memory for us as well.
it
Mm.
is now, I believe that the current gorilla enclosure is undergoing renovations. So you don't have anybody in-house, so to speak, as yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yes, we are renovating. So the gorillas belong to a stud book, which means that they never actually belong to your zoo. So the stud
Mm.
book keeper, which is in Germany at the moment, so they control the populations of gorillas in zoos all over the world, and then basically they'll decide what kind of enclosure is required, what is the new modern take on it, and so we had to renovate our enclosure inside the night rooms, and it's also to if there should be gorillas and they don't get along, that you can separate them very easily,
Mm.
so that they are well protected as well. And then also, if you had to separate them where they couldn't both be outside or all of them outside, you would have to have an additional outside enclosure so that
Right.
your gorillas, would have sunshine and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I must say, it's a little bit, it's quite a thing because in Germany it snows. It
Mm.
doesn't snow here in
No,
Johannesburg really that
luckily.
often. And so when they tell you to make to build an enclosure, it's like always like extra stuff that you have to put in, which really costs us a fortune. But
It's
it's
unnecessary.
not really always, yeah, it's quite, because our weather is fantastic.
Yeah.
So we don't actually require all of those
Mm.
requirements. So, yeah, so but it is interesting working with them. So they have said to us, the stud bookkeepers, that we would most probably get a male and two or three females, but it would be a non-breeding group. So obviously that's how they control the
Yeah.
genetics in the population worldwide.
Now, talking about males and females and genetics, I noticed aside from these are gibbons, if I'm not mistaken, the mandrills also had babies, which is really nice to see that they are
Yes.
breeding, which means that they're happy because animals don't breed if they're not happy or content, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, no, I think so at the moment, we go through seasons, of course, where we have a lot of animals. I think the good thing is that we never without food or shelter, so
Yeah.
the animals can really breed right throughout the year. So the buff-cheeked gibbons, they have babies, very good mother, I must
Mhm.
honestly say. I see that the baby is now kind of wandered off. His name is, I'll think about his name now. But he kind of wanders off from her, and if he goes too
Mhm.
far, then she just drags him by his foot back to her to say, not too
Yes.
far. You're still too small, so you sit with us. And
Yeah.
yeah, he's busy trying, all the antics that gibbons do. I mean, they're so fantastic when they when
Mhm.
they move around the enclosures. I mean, they're like acrobats, so they're really great. Um, And also, if you look at the mandrills, we are actually importing a mandrill from Australia.
Mm.
That's also to help us with our genetics. So that mandrill will probably be in our zoo, I'd say closer to June,
Okay.
which is then also part of the population that we are adjusting to make sure the genetics are sound
But
for breeding.
now, Louise, if you're bringing in a new male, do you then pass your old male on to another zoo, or do you leave them to sort of fight it out as to who gets mating rights?
So what we would do is it's a big introduction program. So one's
Mm.
going to always make sure, that the animals are getting along quite well. Our zoo is really well known for introducing animals. We have never actually really had any issues. For instance, when we are introducing new lions or tigers or whatever the case might be, very well experienced staff that work with these animals. And so the mandrills would go through a period where there would be an introduction and you would start kind of quite slow with it and maybe, just a male and then a female. And so you would build up the family circle of that. We would most probably, in any case, exchange the other male because he is actually quite old at the moment. So,
Okay.
give him a place to retire somewhere, yes.
Doesn't have to fight with the women. I've just come back.
This is like a five-star place for animals. I mean, you get the best food, you get the best vets, you get the best
Best weather.
medication, you get the best care, you get the best weather, and you get really nice people that come and visit us. So yeah,
I must
it's a really
say,
nice place.
I have to say, I was stunned and amazed by the number of people that were at the zoo when I was there on what was a working day. Um, because I thought, who goes to the Joburg Zoo? And then I realized a lot of people do. Now, I went to have a look just before we talk about this bat-eared fox. I went to look at your pricing schedule or your pricing
Oh
basically.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
for somebody like myself who's a pensioner, if you want to be in a safe space for an entire day, for 78 Rand, it's well worth taking a book, some sandwiches, maybe a flask of tea, and just going and sitting in the zoo. And when you get bored of where you're sitting, you can just walk to somewhere else. You can spend the entire day in a safe
It is.
space, enjoying yourself
It's
and
a
enjoying the
fantastic place.
outdoors.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
really. It's a fantastic place. I honestly think if you have any if you have any stress or anything like that, you should just go and
Yeah.
walk in the zoo. It's just, especially in the afternoons, when the animals are quite relaxed, and that's
Mhm.
when you saw the water buffalo in the sauna as
Yeah.
such. And so they were just relaxing with the sun setting. And it's that kind of atmosphere, I think, that makes it very popular. And also just to note, because we are 122, on the 22nd of each month up until end of February, we are just charging 22 Rand per person. And that's to
Wow.
help us
Okay.
celebrate our.
That's
So now
that
there's a good
is
special.
there's
Yeah.
something special.
And
So
so we
please
find a
note,
lot of
people,
people.
put it in your
We find a
diaries
lot of people
now.
that haven't been. Sorry,
Yeah,
David.
22nd.
You see, I get very excited and then I just
That
want to
that's
talk
fine.
about
The only
this.
thing I have to warn people, Louise, is I did a couple of those zoo trots. And what people
Oh,
tend to
yes.
forget is that zoo is on a hill. And running
Well,
up
that's,
is
yeah.
not easy. You think the zoo is flat. Let me tell you something. It's not.
The zoo is yeah, that uphill. I think when you come up with two A, the lines are sure.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a
but I
bit of
must
a
say
pull.
this, yeah, yeah, no, we actually also partnering with Rocky Roadrunners. So Rocky Roadrunners Club comes in, and then they are the fast runners in front, and other
Mhm.
people follow them. Most people walk, they don't even stick to the route because they want to go and see the animals. So they're all over the place. I mean, when I come with my friends to do the zoo trot, it can take me 3 to 4 hours because all they want to do is they want to see and they want to
That's
talk about animals.
that's
And I
what
mean, the
it's
good
all
thing about
about,
that we've got
Louise.
as well,
Yeah.
because we are quite impactful on our residential associations around the
Mhm.
zoo. So you can imagine when it's busy, the roads are packed with cars and so on.
Yeah.
So what we do, our residential associations, they are welcome to come and walk on a Wednesday afternoon,
Mhm.
and then they come in for free, and then they just walk around the zoo. once a month, then we will have a keeper interaction with him. And
Mm.
so last week they went to meet my curator, Catherine, and she took them to the chimpanzees and gave them a little bit of the background information about our animals and how we care for them.
Right.
In the next month, we will then be doing birds. So they'll be you can go into the brooder room area, which is
Mm.
off-site for people. And then we'll go and show you how we breed with birds and how we keep them and where we breed mice for food. So we do quite a lot of stuff. We grow
Okay.
vegetables, we grow mealworms, we grow mice. So yeah, we actually do a lot because our food requirements for the zoo is actually
I
quite
should
massive.
imagine. Yeah, I should imagine.
Yeah.
People don't realize that water buffalo. I love it when I'm sitting on a vehicle in the bush and somebody go, "Oh, look, it's a water buffalo." No, it isn't. Water buffalo you can domesticate. Cape buffalo you can't. Those things will eat you. There's a reason that they're known as Black Death. But this guy was
Yep.
just having an absolutely wonderful time doing what water buffalo do, which is splash about in the water. And it was wonderful to see and experience. Now, you were talking
I
about the
must.
chimps earlier. I spent a long while at this chimp enclosure, and two things that I'd like to discuss with you. The one is the
Okay.
noise that the children make. There were groups, family groups, not chimpanzees, family groups of humans that came in, and the kids were loud and noisy and screaming and banging on the fences if they couldn't reach the cage. And I was hoping at some particular point these chimps would show the humans how they discipline their children. And then maybe the humans will learn from that because chimpanzees, like all the primates, they don't mess about. The kid does something wrong, that kid gets a very frisk slap around the head and is brought into line. So my question is twofold. One, do the chimps hear what's going on from the humans? And does it affect them at all in their interactive behavior with each other?
So I think, to answer that question, and none of us want to think back to when it was our COVID period, but
Mhm.
in those days, our animals really missed people. And so the
Really?
chimpanzees were no different. They really missed people. They missed
Okay.
the interaction. They missed looking at children. I mean, they are also fascinated by human
Mm,
children. And they like looking at them and, showing off with their antics and so on. But you're quite right. Chimpanzees are tight-knit family groups, and they are really good at raising the youngsters and making sure that they behave. It's always kind of like, a bit of a stressful thing when you see a male chimp taking over the group,
mm,
because then, it can become quite rough in there. I mean, sometimes I have a look and see, I can tell you the other day, there was one of our fish in the aquarium were actually attacked by another fish. And I was so shocked. I thought, how dare they do that? This is the zoo, they're supposed to attack,
They don't read the
attack
rules that
each
say
other,
please do not
So, I
touch
mean, yeah.
the exhibits.
And so, sometimes when you look at these chimps, and I mean, they are so immensely strong.
Yeah.
They are 6 to 7 times as strong as a human.
Yeah.
So really, really strong and very, very clever, and bright. And they work things out very quickly. So if you still think that you're one step ahead of them, you'll
Yeah.
have
Too
to
late.
really make sure that
Yeah.
everything is in good order and,
Yeah.
that you don't leave enclosures open or anything like that. Yeah, so and it's actually the same with most animals. So you'll find that the lions and the tigers also work out your routines, and the elephants, on the other hand, oh my goodness, that bull that we have, his name is Ramadiba. He kind of explores his entire enclosure. The one time we found him standing on top of the ledge of the enclosure, where he had kneeled on the ledge and stood up amongst two trees, and
Mm.
basically was pretty much nearly out of the enclosure. And so we had to figure out how we were going to
Get him back.
prevent him from doing that. And so the technical team decided they'll build some metal structures around that particular spot.
Mm.
And we took bets, so it took the elephant 2 days to break it down. And then we decided, okay, what we need to do is we actually need to prevent him from kneeling on
Mm.
the ledge. And so we planted bricks upright so that it would be uncomfortable for him
Mm.
to kneel because he's working out all the time what's going on. He knows the
You think
routines,
you
he
once, as
knows
you
what's
say,
happening.
you think you one
Yes, I'm
step
telling
ahead.
you. And And also with him as well is when his keeper Philemon is on leave,
Mm,
then the oldest female Lummy, she's now 47, I think.
mm.
She actually sulks. She doesn't actually want to speak to other people because Philemon's not there. He's on leave, and she's missing him. So they get so used to their people that
Yeah,
they really kind of feel a lot more relaxed, I think, when their keepers are with them.
and the keepers are
And that's
with
also
them.
the same thing when we bring the vets in.
Mm,
So the vets come in with the keepers to make sure that the animals are fine. So every Monday morning we do a walkabout in the zoo just to have a look and see what the zoo looks like and where we need to do some work and where we need to cut the grass that's forever growing, and so on. And so then we have in a good interaction between the vets and the keepers
yeah,
and myself, so that we can have a look and see what goes on with our animals and how they are looking and how they're behaving, and if all of their behavior is correct. Because we also do programs for behavior enrichment. And so then we give the animals toys to play with. We give them, so the biggest thing in a zoo is that you actually have to extend their feeding time because
mm,
obviously they don't have to go and look for food. And
yeah,
so that is part of the behavior enrichment that we do with our animals. And it actually happens with all of our animals. I mean, even the hippo, we give the hippo pumpkins, all kinds of things that float in the water. They also like lettuce leaves, cabbage leaves floating in the water, so that they can find their food that way. So we also hide food, just so that we can extend that period of activity that they are not bored
yeah.
when they are in the enclosures. Yeah.
Louise, we're running out of time. So this is why I sort of jumped ahead to this particular slide that people don't realize that you're in the center of Johannesburg and that this is what you're from the inside looking out, this is what you see. But as you say, there's so much to see and do at the zoo. There really and truly is. So before I say goodbye and thank you, what is the schedule at the zoo? Are you open every day of the year? Are you open and your opening
Yes.
times?
Yeah, so we open every day for the public. So the staff start at 7 o'clock,
Mm,
most of them. Some of them start a lot earlier than that. And then we open every day because we have to feed the animals every day. And
yeah.
so there's no Christmas Day, because the animals also want to eat on Christmas Day.
Yep.
So everybody comes. And so we open every single day. And then, obviously, the staff are here from 7 to 4 mostly. But the zoo opens at 8:30 and the last entry is at 4 o'clock. And then the zoo closes at 5:30. But we also have night tours and we also have sleepovers, holiday programs. So we do all of that kind of stuff. So the zoo kind of functions every day, full out.
Wonderful. In fact, I'm going to talk to you. I've done night tours there, but a sleepover might be interesting. But we'll chat about that another time, and then I'll write about that as well.
Fantastic.
Louise, I know I parked in the staff car park when I arrived, but is there parking for people who come in via the Jan Smuts Avenue entrance? Or is that not
So
a working
Jan
entrance?
Yeah, so Avenue, the entrance is actually more for drop-off, for
Right.
Ubers and those kind of things.
Okay.
So the parking area is in Upper Park Drive, and we've built a five-story parking entrance there so people can park, and your car's also under shade, so all good. And then when we have events and so on, then we use the Military Museum space, which is
Okay.
at the
It's
top of the
open the
zoo,
top
close to the
gate.
lions.
Yeah.
Yeah, then people can
One.
park there as well.
Wonderful. I've just interviewed Alan Sinclair, who's the
Oh,
manager of
lovely.
of the museum. Louise, thank you so much for chatting to us. I think you've put a lot of people's minds at ease about zoos, and I'm hoping that people say, okay, let's go and have a look. Specifically on the 22nd. It's coming up, folks. It's in like a week's
Yes.
time. It's in, yeah. So go and go, spend your time there and enjoy. And just be aware that you're going to see things that maybe you're not going to see if you were in the wild because they're not African, or if you go to a game reserve, viewing sightings are not always guaranteed, but they are almost guaranteed at the Joburg Zoo. There are some enclosures, and I'm not going to tell you where, and I'm not going to call Louise out over them, but look carefully. I spent many minutes looking into enclosures before seeing signs going, these enclosures are closed for renovations. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No, that's
Louise, thank you so very much. My guest today has been Louise Gordon, who's the executive manager of the Johannesburg Zoo. Go and check it out. If you haven't been, like I hadn't been for a while, you will be pleasantly surprised. Louise, once again, thank you for joining me on In Conversation With.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's only a pleasure. This has been In Conversation With. I'm David Batsoff, and until the next time, bye for now.